Hello, this is Elisa Kohler. Let's learn what the musical circle of fifths is for major keys and how we can use it to help us understand scales, key signatures, and harmony. Well, to start off with, here it is. It's called the circle of fifths, and it seems kind of strange. We will look successively at how this actually shows up from scales. So when we're dealing with the sharp keys, and we're going to start from ground zero, which is C major. If you build a scale on each successive fifth note, as I have here, you are going to generate a scale that has sharps that populate the key signature in the order of the circle of fifths, as well as the order of sharps and flats in the key signature. Now, just to review for a moment, in the movie on major key signatures, we talked about this, but the order of the sharps and flats always shows up in a certain order, and that order can be memorized by this little sentence: Father Charles goes down and ends battle, for the order of sharps. And then say it backwards: battle ends and down goes Charles's father, for the order of flats. And this shows up in the key signatures. If we are going to look at one, I'll bring it up here. So here's how the key signatures work. Of course, I'm selecting C with no sharps and flats, but here they are in this same order. And remember that when you write them, I'll go over this in another movie, how to write the key signature. It always has to look the same way because it's a summary symbol. Okay, great. So how do we get these key signatures in this particular order, and how do we get the circle of fifths? Well, we'll go back to this handout. So if we start in the C major scale and we go to the fifth note, that's G. Okay, here's our key signature for C. And we write a scale starting on G with the whole, half step pattern of the major scale. We get our first sharp, which is F. And then if we start on that fifth note of the G major scale, which is a D, we'll put it down in octaves so it makes more sense. Then we have, once again, F sharp, and then our next sharp is C sharp. Okay, we take that D major scale. We start on the fifth note. You see how this works? We get A. We start a scale on A, and by virtue of the whole, half step pattern of the notes of the scale, we get, bingo, our third sharp, which is G sharp. And I'm not going to belabor this entire method. You can see how it works here for the rest of this. If we start on E, we get a fourth sharp. We start on the fifth note of the E major scale, B, we get our fifth sharp. And then we start on the fifth note, F sharp. That gives us another sharp, C sharp. And so this is how it all works in the order of fifths. That's why it's called the circle of fifths. And the limit of your circle of sharp keys is always going to be C. C major, if I scroll all the way up here, C major is the key that doesn't have any flats or sharps. And then C sharp, all the way down at the bottom, is the key that has all 7 sharps. And they always go in the same order. Now with flats, get down here with flat keys, we go by the number 4, which is the subdominant, if you want to remember your scale degree names. So if we start on 4, then we get flats. So we start a scale on F, then that's going to give us B flat. And if we start on that fourth note, B flat, and we build a scale with our whole, half step pattern of the major scale, we get another flat, which is E flat. And it just so happens that that's going to be the name of the next scale, and so on. E flat, then A flat, the fourth note is D flat, the scale of D flat adds another flat, and then we go on to G flat, etc. Finally, we end up with C flat, which is our major scale that has 7 flats. And remember, the key signature always goes in the same order. So on the flat side of the circle, it goes this way, 1 to 4, 4, and it's always the distance of 4 between the tonic and the subdominant in this case. So that's half of our circle. All right, so let's put it all back together again. I'll scroll up here to the top of my document. And the circle of fifths has what we call the 3 enharmonic keys down here at the bottom. So whether it's C sharp or D flat, you remember looking at a piano keyboard, they're both played by the same black key. And I can show you that if I engage a keyboard here. So this would be D flat or C sharp, etc. And then this would be F sharp or G flat. Similarly, this would be the key of B or C flat. So just to remind you of that, that's why we have our overlapping enharmonic keys here. So the circle is extremely helpful to remember tonic and dominant relationships from 1 to 5, tonic to subdominant relationships from 1 to 4. And if we go back in here and we remember our Father Charles goes down and ends battle, and our battle ends and down goes Charles's father, which is our sentence that helps us remember the order of the sharps in the key signatures that have sharps and flats in the key signatures that have flats. Well, it's very useful because you can write the circle by remembering Father Charles goes down and ends battle, then finish it off with Father and Charles with sharps, and then you can clean up the flat side with battle ends and down goes Charles. We're going to stop. There's no key of F flat here, but that's just a quick way to help you remember it. And with the circle of fifths, with our sharp keys and our flat keys going in fifths and fourths, it's very important to remember how all of this works. The limit is C. Key of C has no sharps and flats. The key of C flat has all sharps and flats. The key of has all flats, sorry. And the key of C sharp has all sharps. So to remember these things can be very helpful. Here's our little crutch once again. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. Now, if we want to look at something interesting, here's how we can hear these fifths and fourths musically. With our circle, once again, go back up here, you can see C to G to D to A. If we play that musically, C to G to D to A, it sounds like this. And then we can go here to hear the fourths for the flat keys. Oh, we're going to go back to the beginning again. Here's the flats. Now this last little measure that I have as an, oh, stop, I didn't want that. This last measure here that we have shows you how the circle kind of shows up musically, because you have your fifths, and then if we go to the octave, then we go back down again. This is kind of how this works. So going up, we have the fifth, and then we have the fourth if we go from G to C. So you will start to see when we get into harmony and chords and minor keys how the tonic and the dominant and the subdominant are going to show up very, very often. So just want to remind you of these scale degree names. I'll pull this up here. The scale degree names. 1 is always the tonic, 5 is the dominant, 4 is the subdominant, and that's where we're going to be using it here. So I hope that that has been helpful. We're going to do a lot of work with the circle of fifths. So when we go back up here, don't forget that this is useful for major keys. There's another circle for minor keys, but the good news is the order of sharps and flats never changes. And this circle of major keys will just be flipped on its side to give us the minor keys. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again later. Thanks. Bye-bye.